All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for attending our webinar on the Agricultural Trade Promotion Program. My name is Danielle Coco. I'm the the Communications Director at SUSTA, and I have here with me Deneen Wiltz, our CostShare Director. A few housekeeping notes. Everybody was muted when they called in, just to keep down the background noise. So there should be a chat feature. If you have questions, feel free to type them in, and we will answer all questions at the end of the presentation. And we're also recording this webinar, so if you want to watch it later or share it with a colleague, I'll be sending the link later today. So with that, we will go ahead and get started. All right, so today we will start with Market Access Program and kind of historically the programs that SUSTA has implemented, and then the new ATP funding, the difference between MAP and ATP, and can companies use both? How do you apply? How do you amend your existing MAP contract to include ATP? And then we'll go over a few frequently asked questions, and then as I mentioned, we'll open it up to questions. But of course, we're always here if anything comes up, as I'm sure it will. After today's webinar, feel free to call and email us with questions. So Market Access Program. Historically, this is the program that SUSTA has implemented. MAP was created and funded by the USDA's Foreign Agriculture Service, and SUSTA was established in the early 1970s to administer MAP to help small southern companies promote U.S. agriculture products internationally. So if you've been participating with SUSTA, you've been a MAP participant, whether you knew it or not. That's how we have run our global events and 50% cost share program, which if you're an old timer, that was the generic and branded programs. So that is what SUSTA has historically implemented. And then if you've been watching the news, last August, the USDA announced a $12 billion relief strategy to help agriculture producers in this challenging trade time. And then a few weeks ago, Secretary Perdue announced that the USDA awarded $200 million of that $12 billion for an agricultural trade promotion program to be implemented by 57 organizations. And SUSTA was among the 57 organizations that was awarded funding, just over $12.5 million. So that is where the ATP funds come from. SUSTA will administer that $12.5 million over a 3-year period. Through our Global Events Program, we'll be creating events in new markets to help our companies diversify their export strategies. So as new events come online, we will be sending you emails and we'll be posting about it on social media, so just keep an eye out. And but they will be posted on our website on the events page, so just keep an eye on those events targeting new countries. And then through CostShare, we will be able to reimburse companies 50% of eligible international marketing promotions. It will be run very similarly to MAP CostShare, but there are a few key differences. The first one is company size. Under the Market Access Program, a CostShare participant had to fall within the Small Business Administration small business size limit. To be eligible under MAP, a company can be up to 3 times the SBA size standard. So we will be able to, through ATP, work with companies that are a little bit bigger, but of course also working with our small businesses. Domestic marketing plans. Under MAP CostShare, companies can request 50% reimbursement of booth fees at certain domestic trade shows that the USDA considers international, as well as for domestic seminars where you have at least 10 international trade representatives in attendance. Through ATP CostShare, companies cannot apply for a domestic marketing plan to get reimbursed for those domestic trade shows or for hosting a domestic seminar. So just keep that in mind. And then the third difference, which is maybe one of the biggest for you guys to know, is that through ATP there is no graduation. So under MAP, you're allowed to be reimbursed for marketing and promotional activities in a country for 5 years. They don't have to be consecutive, but after you've received reimbursement for marketing your products, let's say in China, for 5 years, you're considered graduated from the China market, and you can no longer apply and receive MAP CostShare funds in that country. The only exception to that is those trade shows that are graduation exempt because they attract buyers from kind of internationally all over the world. But that's kind of a side note. Under ATP CostShare, companies can receive 50% reimbursement for eligible promotions in international markets, including those markets that you've already graduated from under MAP. And your reimbursements through ATP CostShare won't count towards your graduation from that market. So because of this difference, we recommend that companies who would typically apply for MAP CostShare would apply instead, which we'll talk about how you do that, through ATP, so that these 3 years where you can be getting ATP CostShare, those years don't count towards your graduation for the countries where you're getting reimbursement. So companies can use both. One way would be a company who is applying for the maximum through MAP and which is $300,000 in reimbursement, and they have a lot more that they want to do this year. They could also request the full $300,000 through ATP. The maximums are the same for both programs. So a company could get $600,000 in reimbursement if using both programs to the maximum. Or a company can move all of their MAP marketing plans to ATP up to the maximum, and they can just be using the ATP CostShare program and not MAP at all. Or a company could keep all of their U.S. marketing plans under MAP, since that is not eligible under ATP, and then move their international marketing plans to ATP. So those are 3 different ways that companies can approach this. Or, of course, I guess you could just keep everything under MAP and not worry with ATP at all. But, again, we would recommend, because of graduation, that companies would move their international marketing plans to ATP. All right. How to apply. So it's going to, for you, the company, it's going to be a very similar process to how you would apply for MAP CostShare. Once Deneen has given you access to the CostShare application, you would apply just like normal by logging into your MySesta account and accessing the CostShare application that way. Once you submit your application, Deneen is going to reach out and ask which funding source you want to apply through. So if you're one of those companies who wants to max out with MAP and ATP, you would just include all of that in your CostShare application. Or if you're just, requesting a much smaller amount, that's fine too. Either way, Deneen is going to reach out and ask which funding source you want to apply through. And if you tell her ATP, then she will go in to our back office online, and she'll amend your requests and mark them as ATP requests. If you've already applied, no fear. All you have to do is contact Deneen and let her know that you want to amend your existing 2019 application to move your funding request to ATP, and she'll be able to do that pretty easily. We just recommend you do that sooner than later, because once you've actually received reimbursement, there will not be a way to change that. All right, so now to move into some frequently asked questions that we've received. Can I use ATP CostShare to hire staff to assist my company? No, that is not something that's eligible under MAP, therefore it wouldn't be eligible under ATP. The 2 programs really do mirror each other very similarly in terms of what's eligible and what's not. So we would recommend looking to the CostShare manual that you've received to see what is eligible and what's not, except for those few differences that we already mentioned. But one thing that you could do with MAP or ATP CostShare funds is hire temporary workers that you pay based on an hourly rate. Independent contractor wages are 50% reimbursable for a maximum of 8 hours per day at a rate not to exceed the maximum $64.58 per hour. And these people that you would hire cannot be a family member or an employee. They can't be an employee of your foreign distributor. They really have to be an outside worker, somebody that you're hiring at an hourly rate in some capacity. So that is one question that we've received a few times. Another one that we've received is there a fee to participate in ATP CostShare? So the answer to that is that it mirrors MAP CostShare, but you wouldn't pay that $250 application fee twice. You only pay that one time, regardless of whether you're applying for MAP or ATP or both. So you'd pay the one-time $250 application fee, and then you'll pay a 6% fee on the amount that you request in reimbursement from either or both programs. And then we have an example there, but it's pretty self-explanatory. So that was a pretty quick explanation, but it's fairly straightforward when you think about it. But of course, I'm sure that there will be questions when it comes to your individual marketing plans. We are going to look at our chat and see if anybody has typed in any questions. Let me see. I'm not seeing anything so far, but let me make sure I'm looking at the right place. All right. Either our chat box isn't working or nobody has questions. Oh, here we go. Q&A. Can we get a copy of the deck? Yes. When I send you the recording of today's webinar, I will also send a PDF version of the PowerPoint. All right. Let's see. Why is it not opening? Is the size requirement still tied to their NAICS or HS code like with MAP? Yes. So we would look at the same SBA size standard, and we could use up to 3, or we can allow companies that are up to 3 times the size.
So if we have a company that their primary size standard or NAICS code is a wholesaler, and with a wholesaler it's usually 100 employees, so it would be triple that amount under ATP. Okay, so someone had a question about the contractor. So if you were doing, for example, a trade show and you needed to hire help to assist at that trade show, we could assist for the hourly wages for that promotional activity. And the same would apply for in-store demonstration. If you had to hire an outside contractor to do your demonstrations in the store, we could assist with that person for that time frame for doing the demonstrations. Yes, the answer to that is ATP application mirrors the MAP. So like Danielle mentioned earlier in her presentation, you will be applying, doing your application under MAP, and if you would like to move the funds to ATP, you will contact me to do an amendment. I will do an amendment in the back office to reflect ATP. Okay, someone had a question about, does the ATP application timeframes mirror MAP? And the answer to that is yes. The application season opens up every year, August 1st. So the earlier you apply and get all of your required documentation in, we can review and process the application for approval under MAP and then amend it to be ATP. Okay, so the question was, where can we find details to what is and what is not included? If you are referring to details as far as the program requirements, you can find that in our manual, the 50% cost share manual. It outlines the details of the program for MAP. The only difference in that manual is, like Danielle mentioned, the size standards and the graduation for ATP. All right, ATP is for 3 years. As Danielle mentioned earlier, we had a person that asked, is the program just for 1 year? No, it's for 3 years, ATP. Okay, the question is, what do we need document-wise to get reimbursed? It's the same as MAP. We need the invoice from the original vendor of services to the company, the proof of payment from the company to the original vendor of services, and the proof of activity, which varies depending on the promotional activity. So, for example, if a company went to a trade show, we will need to see clear photographs of the company exhibiting at the trade show with their brand products displayed. All right, question, is there a separate application form for companies to apply ATP funding? No, there is not a separate application form, so a company would apply under MAP, doing the application for MAP, and if they would like to do ATP, they contact me so I can do an amendment in the back office to reflect that application to be ATP. Is this program on a calendar year basis as with MAP? Yes, it is. It's from January 1st to December 31st, but that depends on when your application is approved. So if your application is approved in March, you will have March 1st as the approval date and up to December 31st. Okay, question, the company submitted their marketing plan in November. If we have all of the required documentation on file, the company's application fee, their federal income tax returns, the signed documents, we review applications on a first-come, first-served basis. So if everything is on file, that person will be notified by me on if we need additional information or if the application is approved.
All right, there is just one last question that for some reason we cannot see the full question. It's from Lisa. To participate in CostShare, does a company have, and for some reason it's not all displaying, have to have $50,000 in annual revenue?
The answer to that question is yes. Under MAP as well as ATP, a company has to have at least $50,000 in annual revenue. Is the requirement for ingredient content at least 50% USA to be eligible for ATP? The answer to that question is yes. Just like MAP, a company has to have 50% has to have products that is 50% USA content, excluding water and packaging, and it applies the same for ATP. If there are any other questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. You could call me or send an email, and I'll be more than happy to answer your questions.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We will go ahead and stop recording. And